I'm getting ready to introduce somebody to you who I consider a great friend. She is such an amazing woman, and I'm telling you that there are times when a shift comes for the betterment of the planet, of the land. And so she and I have been friends, and we've talked through some situations where she worked, and just to see how the good could come for the whole community. I'm getting ready to introduce to you Nicole Hokoana. And Nicole is now the CEO of Maui Behavioral Health, which has 3 organizations under it. Aloha House, I'm going to mess up the other 2. But this is the one thing that I want to tell you is that the shift came because for a long time it was under male leadership. And so, how many of you know at times, especially when you service the underprivileged, the marginalized, those coming out of prison, those who are homeless, those who have been drug addiction and have issues with mental health, a lot of times it takes the compassion, understanding, and giftedness, because she bad. She's just bad. She's a quiet leader, but she gets the job done. And it's not easy. How many of you know that? That's not easy. But this woman is such a great overcomer and a witness that, and she'll tell about, I guess maybe not, about her ethnicity. She is Hawaiian, and she's also Puerto Rican. Good combination in there, right? But this is her time. This is her season. And I told her she is such a great example for young girls coming along that feel like they are marginalized and can't. You can move through life all the way to wherever it is you want to go. So my friend, my love, my one I come and hang out at her house, eat her food. We got the other legs. Yep, they come. Y'all come in. Our dogs play. Yep. We have play dates. Yep. We go out to Mama's fish out often. Well. Yes. I love you. You are the bestie. You are such an amazing woman of God, of power, in your way of doing it and your presence, making such a deep impact. And all of us here surround you with love while you do the job you do. I know it's not easy. So we'll make a pact to remember her as she does her work. And if you want to help, there's ways to volunteer.
Aloha kako, o wau o Nicole Emilia Hokoana, o Gerald Palakiko Hokoana Sr., ko'u kane o Francine Diane Canberra, ko'u mama, o Maui Nui a Kama ku'u moku, o Haleakala ku'u mauna, o Kahono a Maliko ku'u kai a o Paia ku'u one hanau. So aloha everyone. My name is Nicole Hokoana. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Maui Behavioral Health Resources. I just started in that job just very recently, and prior to that, I spent about 16 years in human services And prior to that, I was a classroom teacher. I have a bachelor's degree in education and a master's degree in counseling, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And so, so Kailani asked me today to come and speak with all of you, and I'll be honest in saying that I was like, oh my God, 15 minutes, really? How am I going to fill 15 minutes of talking? So here I go. So you can actually flip through the 2 slides. I'm a little nervous, but I'm getting through it. So my story begins on the plantations of Maui. Both of my parents are of this island, and I'm of many generations. My dad is Hawaiian, and he was raised in Hawaiian camp in Paia. That's why I call it my Onehana, which means the sands of my birth. My mom is from Pu'unene, where Target is now. So she was raised in Spanish B. I call myself a plantation poi dog because I'm Hawaiian, Portuguese, Chinese, Puerto Rican, Portuguese. I think I already said that. According to Ancestry DNA, I'm Black, I'm Filipino, and I have many different colors in me. So I grew up on Aina in the Paia area, and that's also where I live today. Okay, next slide. I call this slide Big T trauma and Little T trauma. All of these photos are of my family, and I was very blessed to not have any big T trauma in my life. So my story is very different than many people that speak. I don't have any, I have no history of child abuse or neglect or sexual violence. I'm so fortunate to never have experienced the family conflict or the alcoholism or the substance use that has affected so many families. I mean, my own families, but not in my immediate life. And so I had small T trauma, like all children do, but my parents valued education. My parents worked hard. All people who lived on plantations worked hard. So we haven't lived like easy lives. And we used to clean the church of the church school that I went to. So I was raised in churches. But my parents were committed to us being educated. So that's what they did. So I was very blessed to have wonderful parents. Next slide. So I've always reflected on, as I've grown, I've reflected on why do I have these feelings, right? And this is what Kailani and I have talked about. Like, where do they come from? Like these feelings of I'm so ordinary. I'm guarded in the world. I definitely am the not blank enough. You fill it in. That's always how I've felt about myself. I carry a lot of shame. And I also, as I've advanced in life or achieved things, I've always thought, gosh, I was just lucky, or it's an accident. And I've literally said that, in not a conference, but in large areas with people as I've I've just been lucky, or it's just a matter of time before they figure out who I really am, And I've always not really understood where that came from because I had a very happy childhood. So next slide. So before I dive into this slide, my life really changed when I went to UH Manoa. I was, as a freshman or sophomore there, I remember going through the catalog and seeing that I was required to take 2 years of foreign language. And interestingly, I saw that I could take Hawaiian also. And I thought, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll try Hawaiian because I took Japanese in high school. And so I thought, why not? And what I missed saying in that other slide about core themes, while I've always carried these core themes that are not so positive, I've always also carried a core theme of justice. And I remember reading when I was in 5th grade, I remember reading the Houghton Mifflin social studies book, and it was a time of Native Americans and the British and the French coming, and they were battling the Algonquin and the Iroquois. And I love history, so like I was like reading through that, and I remember rooting for the Indians. And when they lost battle after battle, and in the end they lost their lands, I was crushed. And ever since then, I've pursued knowledge of, like, history has been super hoi to me, and that's why, because I wanted to learn more about this injustice and justice for people like those Indians. But curiously, I never realized, I never made a connection at that time or throughout my upbringing that I was just like those Indians. Because it wasn't until I accidentally, right, because it wasn't intentional, that I enrolled in a Hawaiian language class. It was just like, oh, okay, I have to, right? Oh, why not Hawaiian language? So it wasn't until I did that, and I actually ended up spending 4 years studying Hawaiian language, and it changed my life. It absolutely changed my life. I was introduced to a worldview that I had no idea existed. After I finished college, the subjects I taught was, U.S. history. And as I began having children and raising my children, I decided my children were not going to be raised the way I was. Not that I was raised in a bad way, but I was raised without knowing my identity. So, I guess I can say that culture has led, from young adult, like post-college, through till now, all those things that I learned through Hawaiian language propelled me forward both professionally and then also personally in my values and how I chose to raise my children, and professionally as well. So the lessons that I take, I see more through a Hawaiian lens and apply in a way that's more authentic for myself. So this next slide is called Makahana Ka'ike. So these are the ways that I've kind of professionally, but also have personally kind of endeavored, I guess, through the years. And what this slide means is hana is work, and ike is knowledge and light. And my kupuna knew that you have to do the work to know. And so as a leader, if you want to know, you got to do the work, right? If you want to lead people, you cannot be hiding behind your desk. You have to be out there. You have to understand the issues. You have to understand what's happening with your staff, understand the challenges. And you don't get that ike or understanding if you're afraid to try. So in the work, there is knowing. Our kupuna also said, huli kalima ilalo, which is, and we tell our kids this in Punana Leo, and Kealoha knows this, and that means to put your hands down. We teach our children to get dirty in the lepo, right? To huli your hands, put them down into the earth, and that's where the ike is, and that's where the value is. So, makahana ka ike. And I do tell my staff that too sometimes, the kanaka ones, like, don't ask questions, just go do it, right? Go do it. Next slide. Pilina. So pili means to be connected, and pilina is the relationship that we have with Keakua, with Kanaka, and with Aina. And Hawaiians believed in relationships with living and non-living things. And pilina is my relationship with my, especially among community, right? Pilina builds community. So relationships, we need to take care of them. And for me, in my work, pilina has been very important, not just with my staff and sharing who I am with my staff and building relationships with the people I work with, but also with partners in the community or funders, right? Like trying to drive for authentic relationship versus, for me, like networking. You know, like networking has an agenda. For me, pilina, the relationship is a process, and the relationship is the product, right? So So pilina. And then also with pilina, sometimes when I have conflict with a person or with a staff member, sometimes I think to myself that I need to build pilina with that person because we don't have an understanding of who each other is. Okay, next one. So awamo kuleana is actually that stick, the yoke, and it's to carry heavy things. And kuleana is responsibility. And so in this slide, when it's together, the way I see it meaning is that kuleana, responsibility, my kupuna knew that responsibility is not an easy thing to carry. It's not light. It's not simple. It would be much easier to run away from your kuleana, but we need to awamo our kuleana, and we do that by putting it onto our back, and we lift, and we move forward. And I've also heard this, that in when you give kuleana, you build your mana. And so if you think about people that you think are, we hear mana wahine, right? Like, think about people with mana, like, right? It's because they've taken on that kuleana that they're building their mana. So without kuleana, then we don't have this opportunity, right? Or we're building capacity through taking on our kuleana. Okay, next slide. So this is my daughter's graduation, and like we literally, the parents were together, and we pushed our keiki forward. Imua in Hawaiian, imua is to move forward. And this is this saying, imua e nā poki'i inui ka vai ava ava. It means, Kamehameha the first said this to his beloved. So poki'i is beloved brothers. When they were on the shores of Maui and he was going to be conquering the islands, and Maui was known for its fierce warriors. Yeah. And he was saying to his warriors, drink, inu is to drink of these bitter waters. And as he moved them forward, and he loved them, right? He loved them, and yet he knew that some of them would not survive the battle, right? But he moved them forward and said, it's time to drink of this bitter water. It's time for us to enter into something that is hard, but imua is what we need to do. So I kind of think of this like I said earlier, that I have a strong theme for justice, and it's not easy to be pursuing justice when so many things feel so heavy. And in this time, it's a really heavy time for Maui. But we must move forward, and we need to fight for justice for our people. Next slide. And in tying it all together, this is way too small to see, but this is a ahupua'a, and I think this might be helpful for you. But the black words are all the risk factors, and the blue words are protective factors. But I saw this recently, and I almost would think it's an accident, except I realized that I'm not as accidental as I used to think. So here's our mauna, and from mauna, ua is rain, and it comes down upon our land, and it enters our watershed, and it comes down in the form of kahavai, and it enters our lo'i, where our kalo grow. And all the black is the oppression and the colonization and the occupation of our lands and the theft of our waters and the theft of our identity as Kanaka. And it has been passed down through generations. And it's in my lepo, it's in our soil, these toxins. And so even though I was raised in a really beautiful home, I still feel the hila, the shame and the fear. Because it's in the water and the soil. And it's resulted in kalo that is diseased with incarceration,
and family violence. And it's painful. But I also realize that on the right-hand side, the protective factors that Kupuna gave me, wonderful gifts through our olelo and through our culture and through our mo'oku au hau and many other things. They gave us wonderful gifts, and we've survived, and we will survive, and we will thrive. And one day, the toxins that are in our soil will be cleaned, and we will be able to thrive as Kanaka. Oh, and I'm not an accident, and this is all, these are all the gifts, right? These are the gifts of our ancestors, and I am a gift of my ancestor, and the work I do today will be healing for the generations to come.